Okay, as we jump into this project, you need to know at the beginning of it that you're going to need a way to press the bearings back in there. They're very small bearings, and so your standard bearing press isn't going to work. You can pick up this basically simple system at your hardware store for really cheap. And then the key here is, in order to remove the nut that's going to be at the end of this, you need a 10mm socket, but it's narrow so that this socket cannot be wider than 14mm. And that way it'll slide down inside of this in order to get the nut out. We'll show you that as we go on. Okay, so that's what you need to know as we get going. Let's dive into this project. Okay, step one is going to be removing this black protector cap at the end. Set it aside. Okay, when you get the cap off, you can look down in here and see it looks like there's a metal bushing that's on the outside here, and we have to remove that in order to keep going. So just tapping it like that, you might have to get a screwdriver some way to pull it out of there, but you can't go on without that. So we'll take that again and set it aside. Now we're going to take that 10mm and an 8mm Allen key. Do it up like that. There we go, we got that out. You should also have a little washer that will come out of there. Set these things aside, make sure not to lose them. Now the reason we're even redoing this pedal is that the spindle won't budge at all. Like it won't spin without the help of this, and even that's really tough. So your spindle should just come right out, but because there's something messed up on the inside of this pedal, that's not what my situation is. So I'm gonna try to slowly twist and pull some friction and see if I can get the spindle to release. There we go. Okay, now you're gonna see that down inside your pedal you have a bushing. Should be able to just grab it and pull it out. And again, you want to set that aside. And what brings us to this end here, where you have a small bearing setting down inside of that, and then underneath that bearing you have another bushing. And so we got to try to get that bearing out. Okay, getting that bearing out can be a bit tricky. Basically, you need some kind of rod or screwdriver that measures 7mm in diameter, and I have this in my toolbox, and it just fits right in there perfectly. The issue is if it's 8mm, it will hit the bushing that's down inside there, and if it's 6mm, it will slide through the hole in the bearing. So it has to be 7mm in order to work. So you just find if it's an Allen key or a long bolt or something that's 7mm diameter, and then you can just tap that bearing out. There it comes, just like that. Pop it off of there. And then there's one more bushing down inside there. If you're going to do a full rebuild, you're going to you need to be able to get that bushing out as well. Here I'm going to take an 8mm Allen key and just gently push it down in there and try to slide that out. There it goes. And actually, this makes sense now. I was saying before how the pedal was totally stuck. It looks like this bearing is, this bushing is broken, which is the cause of the problem. So get my my kit out and we'll put this pedal back together. That's how you take the Burgtec MK5 apart. Now let's put it back together. Okay, so putting the pedal back together is basically going to be the reverse of how we took it apart. So I'm going to start with this top bushing. I'm going to take some light grease, some slick oleum, put it on the edge here, and drop it down into the top of the pedal. Just gently work it down into the spot that it's supposed to go. When you get that bushing mostly down in there, you can get either an extension like this and finish pushing it using the thick end. A 10mm Allen key will work too. Just make sure that's pushed kind of all the way down in there. That's step one of putting it back together. Step two is going to be putting the bottom bushing in. It's the same thing. Just put a little bit of grease on there. Just slide it down here in the bottom. Now it's time for our bearing to go in. Okay, these bearings are not very big, and that can make them a little bit tricky to work with. So if you can, you want to, start it off by putting pressure on it, and then once you start to put pressure on it, then when you're going to push it down in there. And one of the ways that you can do this is by taking that sleeve that we took out of there and then tapping it down. And that will get things started, just as simple as that. The other way is, if you have one of these rods, is to use it to press that using kind of the same technique. You can press this down like that. If you have a bearing press tool, you can start getting a little fancy by trying to find a tap or a die here that will work. But the thing that I found that works really well is to use the same top bushing from the other pedal to push this down. And you've got to be kind of precise as you do this, trying to line them up and stuff. But that will push the bearing down to the proper depth, putting the pressure on the outside of the bearing where you want it. So make sure that the top is kind of aligned there. And when you get it, then you just slowly start turning. You can see it will start to give way as the bearing gets pressed down inside of there. So I'll just finish it off here by tightening it down with an Allen key. Doesn't have to be too tight. So when it stiffens up, then you know you've got it. And you can back it out. Okay, so moving forward from here, you want to make sure you get the sleeve back out of here. And then you've got your spindle. You have a black grommet that goes on here. Again, a little bit of light grease is a good idea. Put it around here. Slide this in here like this. Then we've got this small washer that we're going to put in here. And then the nut goes on. start to hand tighten it, and then it'll finish it here. 8mm. Okay, to finish the rebuild, we would take this sleeve and drop it back down in there, and then put this cap on here. However, if you're rebuilding the other pedal too, you're going to need that sleeve to set the bearing on the other pedal. So keep it aside until you do the other pedal. But that is essentially how you rebuild a Burgtec MK5. Pretty simple job. You just need the proper bearing to be able to do that. If you look in the video description, I've got the bearing number and bearing size so that you can order those online. Thanks for watching.